Alright, so this little demonstration here will demonstrate how to export views from your Revit model of a three-dimensional house and create two-dimensional views in AutoCAD that can be exported to the laser to be cut out of a material like cardboard and end up with a 3D house model of your Revit model. So the first thing you have to recognize is that this is a 3D model and the laser prints only two-dimensional or cuts or engraves two-dimensional materials. So you have to extract the two-dimensional information from your Revit model, like elevations, roof planes, things of that nature, and then lay them out on a material. This is your final view. This would represent like a piece of cardboard, 2 foot by 3 foot, and then your walls, windows, doors, and then pick what's going to be a cut, scan, engrave, or a dot for folds. Like for example, this is a glue tab I added on here. You might want to dot this line here so it'll fold, like you see here in the house here. These are dotted lines so that they'll create folds. And on the inside of your model, which you won't see from the outside, you'll have glue tabs to assemble your model, because if you just have two pieces glued edge to edge, it won't hold together very well. So here's the procedure for how to do that. So from Revit, you have to start with a simple view, like maybe your right elevation view. You should duplicate the view first. So to duplicate your 3D view, select it, right click, duplicate, duplicate view, duplicate. Okay, so it creates a copy. Then you should rename them so you know what in the world all your views mean. Maybe call this right elevation, or right for short, or walls. So do that. Then, if you're only interested in these walls, you have to isolate those so that you don't get all this other stuff in your exports. So you can do it a couple of ways. You can hide everything from view, or you can select the elements that you want to keep, such as the walls that you want. You can control click to select multiple things, if I can do that. And then you can go down here to temporary hide and go to isolate element, and then everything else disappears from view, so you're only working with those. Now that's going to be on this view here. That's why it's important to duplicate it, because you'll see that in a second. So now you want to create a drawing sheet to export this to. So down here, just like you created a drawing sheet before, I right click new sheet and I just picked the biggest one, and then I created a new sheet, and here's my new sheet. In here you can drag, once you have this new sheet created, you can drag in your drawing view. So this was right walls I just did, so I can drag that in here and place it somewhere on my drawing sheet and pick a scale. So by default it goes to 1/8 inch. I would do 1/4 inch equals a foot, and then that changes the size of it. If you want to, you can crop the view so that you can get rid of these lines, but in the end it really doesn't matter, because all you need is this from here. You should also change your visual style. You don't need a solid background, so what I found what works the best is the 2D hidden. So if you go to, I think it's visual style, change this to hidden line. That way you just have lines for the perimeter, not everything else shaded. And if you go back here to your drawing sheet, you'll see that updated. Alright, now for the roof. I created this before. So the roof is one of the most tedious parts, because your roof, you can't just be exported from one of your right, front, or back views, because all these roof planes are sloped. Unless you have a flat roof, which most of you don't, you have to export these planes one at a time. So here's how to do that. So if I go back to my 3D view here, okay, I can duplicate it first again, right click, duplicate, call this roof 2 or something, 2. I'm going to isolate the roof, so I only see that. Select it, glasses, isolate element. Now, if I want to export, say, this plane here, I have to set the work plane to be aligned with this face. So I hit set work plane, pick plane, okay, and now select the plane I want, and then show, and you'll see if you rotate this that that's aligned with the plane. Now we have to make that parallel to the screen, so when we export it, it'll be true size. So the way you do that is right click on the view cube, orient to a plane, and that's the plane we just created. Hit OK, and you'll see it's aligned with the screen. Then we can go back to our drawing sheet here and just drag this view in here, roof 2 I think it was called. And then there it is. Our scale, we want to make sure it matches. 1/4 inch equals a foot. And then we can readjust it and so on. Now, recognizing in this view, the only useful geometry in here is this face here, and also this face here that I'm outlining with my mouse, because this face and this face are parallel to each other. So I don't have to recreate another one for here. But this one, this one, this one are useless for this view because they're not parallel to the screen. So you'll have to create another one like I did here for the front face. So once you organize this to how you want, then you have to export this. So I suggest you set it up once and export it once. So to export it, you hit the R button, export, CAD, and select DXF. Pick that, all right, and then select next, DXF. You want to know where you saved it, so this is Matt, so you put it on his P drive, and we'll call this, I don't know, sheet 2. 2.dxf, hit OK. I guess leave this.
Oh my God.
Alright, so ignore that part, and then we exported one successfully before, and we just went File, Open from AutoCAD. What's important here when you go to find the file is you have to change this from DWG to DXF. So here is the first file. Alright, so we're picking up part 2 here. So from Revit, we exported the view as a DXF, and now we just opened it in AutoCAD. But when you open it, you see this view here, and it looks all white, and you're wondering what in the world's going on. To get to your actual model, you change this from Layout to Model tab, and here's the view that we exported from Matt's Sheet 1 from before. A few things to pay attention to. If I measure this, and I hit DI, for example, and click on the overall length, notice that this is 68 feet. Okay, that's obviously way too big, so we have to scale it down. If your scale is 1/4 inch equals a foot, you're going to be scaling this by 1/48. So to do that, you hit the Scale command here, select Scale, select the whole object, right-click, pick a base point to scale from, and then type in 1 divided by 48 as a fraction, 1/48, no units because it's a scalar, and then hit enter, and then all of a sudden it got really small. If we double click the scroll wheel and measure it now, DI, for distance, our model is 1 foot 5 inches. That's much more reasonable. That's about this large for a model, which would be an appropriate size model to use. Last thing from here is, as we have multiple views, we have to figure out what material size are we working with. So if your cardboard is 18 by 24 inches, you can draw a rectangle that's that big. So draw a 24, 18 inch rectangle, and now you can see how many walls or floors will fit on this page. So now I may have to create a joint here, so I can make a glue tab by sticking out like this off the side. I could just freehand it with the line tool, and then this would be a fold. So the next thing is to organize this by color. I have to decide what's going to be a cut, what's going to be a scan, and what's going to be an engrave. And if you remember from the last laser project, we use colors to determine that. So by picking lines and picking colors, like maybe a red's a cut, and I want to dot this, so I'll make this blue. You pick your own color pattern, but decide what you want for a cut, scan, engrave. Then you organize this and go from there. One of the last things is you have to make sure you delete overlapping lines, because if you don't, if you have one cut and one engrave, it's going to engrave and then cut it, and then your window's going to fall out when in fact you want it to trace the outline. So to fix that is a command in AutoCAD called overkill. Type in overkill, just like I said it, hit enter. Select your objects, hit enter, and then it comes up with lots of options here. One of the options here is to delete duplicate objects. So you can probably leave the thing by default and hit OK, and it should delete overlapping lines. So there were no overlapping lines in this case, but if you had overlapping lines, it would in fact delete them. Last step from here, this is already a DXF, so you don't need to do anything. Just make sure it's saved, and then open up RdLaser Works from here, which isn't installed, but you would import it by going Control-I for import, and then make sure your units are set to inches instead of millimeters so it's scaled appropriately. Thanks for watching.